We want to say a big welcome to, of course, our panelists and our guests. So we have our guest, Steve Coco, and Steve Coco, retired FBI supervisor, special agent, and security consultant. Sir, we want to say a big thanks to you. Season greetings to you and the family as well.
Thank you.
And
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you. Pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me. And greetings to you all. And happy holidays. Safe holidays.
Thank you. Document. Let us get to the role of the office of the director, right? Because we want to go, right? We are guiding the conversation tonight as it relates to the Constitution, the power that embedded on the DPP. And we are going to break that down for our individuals. Now, let us go through so all can see this. Right, the role of the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. The Office of the Director of Public Prosecution is created by Section 94 of the Jamaica Constitution, Order in Council in 1962, hereinafter referred to as the Constitution. The office is described as a public office. Further, Section 94, subsection 2, sets out the qualification of the Director of the Public Prosecution, hereinafter referred to as the DPP, by stipulating that the holder of the office should be the equivalent. So if Jamaica never know this, right, the equivalent of Paula Llewellyn's responsibility, equivalent to a judge of the Supreme Court of Judicature, right? So we know that tonight, right? We are edifying our public. In Section 94, subsection 3, prescribe now the powers of the DPP, which are as follows, right? Now, we want to go through this to the fact that we know that the DPP won that case to resume office, and so then we're going to highlight the powers of the DPP. Now, as it relates to Section 94, subsection 3A, let us read subsection 3A. To institute and undertake criminal proceedings against any person before any court of martial of any offense against the law of Jamaica. Section 94, subsection 3B, to take over and continue any such criminal proceedings that may have been instituted by any other person or authority. Section 94, subsection 3C, to discontinue at any stage before judgment is delivered any such criminal proceedings instituted or undertaken by himself or any other person or authority. Now, as a result of that, right, that is what we are going to into and Coco speaks to us. But before Steve Coco speak to us, let me just go into my concern relating to that, right? Where we want Steve Coco to, yeah, so take that away, only take that document. All right. So, Brother Steve, we have seen that the DPP had wide range of powers in terms of Section 93. Now, concern. I'm getting a double mic.
I think Steve might have a device.
Okay, so my concern, right? Now, according to Section 94, subsection 3 of the Constitution, the DPP has the power to discontinue at any stage before judgment is delivered, right? Any criminal proceedings instituted or undertaken by the office or any other authority. I am asking Steve to guide us through this process. Should there be an oversight entity without political influence to determine whether or not that the DPP decision to dispose of any case is justified based on prescribed laws? So that is my question for you, Steve. And one of the reasons why We are asking this question. We know as human beings, right? We are not perfect. The Bible says that we are all of sin and come short of the glory. So invested such a power on the DPP so that the DPP at will can end the case. I am asking if there should be any oversight body as it relates to, try to understand the basis and the grounds as to why the DPP would have ended this case. Some authority to keep checks and balance. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, again, as I told you, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. But yes, absolutely essential for there to be independent oversight. Because if there's not independent oversight, then the committee that is, which the intentions of which is to have some degree of, control or at least oversight, it becomes totally political. The DCPP, I forgot the exact acronym that you're using, but there needs to be oversight. If the DCPP is put together by politicians or people are appointed by politicians, there needs to be oversight, such as your parliamentary oversight or an independent committee that is not linked to it in any way. Otherwise, if you have links between the oversight committee and the committee itself, then you're going to have all kinds of, influence that may be undue, untoward, uncalled for. So you need to have independent oversight. And then if the committee ends its work suddenly, well, I mean, if the DCPP ends its work suddenly, well, at least there's a committee to find out, hey, why did this work end already? Are you done with your investigation? Was there some sort of issue that came up? What did you find during your oversight? Is there double dipping or is there corruption somehow? Please explain. But without that oversight committee, you're not going to have that transparency. Transparency is essential.
Perfect. Steve, I'm glad you mentioned that. Now, I want you to tell us, as it relates to your criminal justice system, how does that work for you as it relates to that oversight body? Please explain to us.
Well, of course, I'm in the United States, so it's a different judicial system than in Jamaica. But of course, in the United States, we have the federal judiciary and oversight. We have the federal judiciary, we have the federal executive branch, and then we have state governments as well. But whether you're federal or whether you're state, there is oversight. And the oversight of a committee or a justice ministry or a justice department is done by the members of the parliament. And those members of the parliament, they've been elected by the people. And quite often when you have an oversight committee that is overseeing some sort of corruption probe or judicial probe or judicial appointments or whatever it may be, it's going to be made up of people from various parties. Because if you have it just made up of the people from the party in power, then the transparency is going to be limited, and that's an invitation toward corruption. So here in the United States, for example, you have congressional oversight committees that look at the actions of the federal government, the presidency, the executive, and then you have it on a state level as well in each of the 50 states.
So basically, in terms of what you're saying, let me just use a scenario. So you are saying basically Jamaica criminal justice system is only flying on one wing.
It's what? Sorry?
It's only flying on one wing, not having full oversight committee, not having an oversight body.
Okay.
All right. So let me just bring up Jamai in this space. Now, let me say, Steve, I'm going to show you two cases. I'm going to present two cases as it relates to why it is important that the DPP office should answer to an oversight body, might be from the parliament or an independent body who is totally not being influenced by the politics, right? Totally independent. So yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. So obviously something is wrong, right, as it relates to that legislation there that give the DPP such a wide power. That power need to be checked, and I'm going to present the cases to you to show you the reason why we are arguing this and why the DPP really need to have an oversight. But let me just go to the two cases. Honey, can you just go to Jamaica Star, Vybz Kartel appeal?
Oh.
Let us present this case to the public and to see why we are having this discussion as it relates to the ultimate power being given to the DPP without checks and balance, not having an oversight body. Now, Vybz Kartel appeal, defense accused DPP of misconduct. This is what you are talking about. Director of Public Prosecution, DPP, Paula Llewellyn, has been accused of prosecutorial misconduct during the Vybz Kartel murder trial. Now let us look why. Vybz Kartel, whose given name is Adidja Palmer, Sean Storm, whose given name is Sean Campbell, and their co-convicts, Kyra Jones and Andre St. John, are seeking to have their 2014 conviction squashed. They were convicted of killing Clyde Williams at a house in Avondale, St. Andrew in August 2011. Now, Bert Summers, Sean Storm, lead attorney, argued that the misconduct centered around Llewellyn's advice to the presiding judge to continue the trial, knowing that one of the jurors was allegedly trying to bribe his colleagues to let go demand them or to let go the men. Now, he made the assertion in the Court of Appeal this morning as Sean Storm and his mentor, top entertainer Vybz Kartel, begin their quest to have their murder convictions and lengthy prison sentence overturned. Let me take that document away. Let me speak to Steve. Brother Steve, the conclusion of that matter, it was taken to the Privy Council, and the Privy Council overturned the conviction based on to the fact that there was a tampered jury, right? And the prosecution advised the court to go ahead. Now, if a situation like that happened in the United States, where it is known that the DPP was cognizant of a tampered jury and still force the court to go ahead, what would be the approach as it relates to your criminal justice system?
Well, I mean, it sounds to me as though evidence that the jury might have been corrupted somehow or faced undue influence,
yes,
by whoever, a third party. It sounds to me that that's pretty clear. In the case, if that had happened in the United States, then absolutely the judge would have dismissed the jury, and he probably would have declared what we call a mistrial, which means the defendant, the person who was accused, would have the right to another trial, because you can't, what we say is you can't remove the taint. So if you have, even if one juror was somehow influenced or corrupted or faced undue pressure or had unreported contacts with the other side, then the whole jury's kind of contaminated at that point. So it's a question of, does the judge dismiss just one juror, or does he dismiss all 12 jurors? If it's pre verdict, they may just dismiss one juror and replace him or her with someone else. If it's post-verdict, if the person's already been found guilty, let's just say, and then we find out about this undue influence at that time after our defendant, after the accused was found guilty, then the right thing for the judge to do is declare order a new trial for the defendant, because that guilty verdict might have been reached in a corrupt manner. So that's what would happen here.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, sharing that information. I'm going to go to a next clip, and let me just explain it as it relates to why I'm going to this clip. Now we have what we call the Integrity Commission Act of 2017, as it relates to their responsibility is to investigate corrupted politicians per se, as it relates to procurement procedures and so forth. And so then let us just go to their website and just share their mission statement with us, and then we delve into that. All right, so okay, so let me just read this as it relates to the Integrity Commission mission. I know we have some things that blocking it out, and we can't able to move it, but let me just read it as it relates to the mission of the commission is to achieve a corrupt-free society by preventing, detecting, investigating, and prosecuting acts of corruption through high-performance culture and efficient systems. Our vision of the Integrity Commission is realizing and sustaining a corrupt-free Jamaica, right? Now, let us get into that. Professionalism, the Integrity Commission is result-oriented. We take ownership of obligations. We keep knowledge and skills current and relevant, and we exercise good judgment. We resolve focused initiatives when the situation demands it, right? The Integrity Commission is trustworthy, honest, and open with internal customers. Our staff members are sincerely receptive to the public. We are impartial and non-partisan. Let me repeat that. We are impartial and non-partisan. So let me just go to the question. Take that away on. Now, Brother Steve, let me ask you this. Now, the IC core mission is to achieve a corrupt-free society by preventing, detecting, investigating, and prosecute acts of corruption. However, right, there are naysayers as it relates to the incumbent government who believe that the Corruption Act, Section 14, subsection 5, that prosecute illicit enrichment, they believe that it should be removed as a result of the Integrity Commission investigators are investigating them, right? Now, let me say this. Do you believe that the IC investigators need a legislative framework to prosecute independently?
Well, they may need it. They may need it. I don't know enough about the system, but it sounds like they may need it, or at least they may need the independence and the wherewithal to conduct their investigation and then have direct liaison with the public prosecutor's office and present evidence to the public prosecutor's office so that that office can make a determination. Yeah, it looks like laws were violated here or laws were not violated here. And each side should be able to write their opinion. In other words, this commission should reduce its findings to writing and say, hey, this is what we found during our oversight. And then the public prosecutor's office should reduce its findings to writing as well and say, after meeting with the commission, we concur that prosecution may be warranted because of X, Y, and Z, or we disagree that prosecution is warranted. We don't think it's warranted because of these extenuating factors or because there's just not evidence. So it needs to be in writing. It can't be verbal because we have a saying that if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. So we need to know what the sentiment was and how they reached the decision. Yeah, we're going to prosecute or we're not.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that information as well. Right now, let me just lay out some situations for you here. Our Prime Minister, right, at current, has been investigated by the Integrity Commission, right, for, to the fact that going 3 years consecutively, 2021, 2022, and 2023, Steve, that the Prime Minister's statutory declaration is unable to certify, thus, right, triggered an investigation as it relates to what may hinge on illicit enrichment. Right? The Integrity Commission had spoken to the Prime Minister, right, as it relates to how he acquired his wealth. And obviously, the Prime Minister, right, have no answer for the Integrity Commission any at all. Now, my question as it relates to that, right? In your criminal justice system, if you have the president, so to speak, going 3 years, right, where his statutory declaration cannot be certified, as it relates to your criminal justice system, how would your criminal justice system approach this process?
All right. We're talking about potential. How does the Prime Minister, where does he derive his funds from, his money, illicit, potentially illicit or unreported wealth or sources of income? Is that your question? I wasn't quite sure.
Yes, that is my question.
Okay. So what would happen would be this. Of course, we have a president rather than a prime minister, but we also have heads of agencies which are just under the president, such as the head of the Justice Department, the State Department, the military. They're just one level below the president and vice president. So rather than an integrity commission, what we have is, again, I mentioned congressional oversight or parliamentary oversight. If there's a question as to where someone at that level, his or her funds come from. In other words, we're saying, wait a minute, you are making X amount of money a year as a public servant, as the head of the Justice Department, but your lifestyle requires millions of dollars that we're not paying you from the government. How are you able to afford this lifestyle, these magnificent homes, bank accounts, boats, cars, etc.? There needs to be a commission that what we have in the United States, we establish congressional committee. It's a congressional inquiry. And Congress has the authority to establish a committee, and that committee has subpoena powers. In other words, they can demand from banks and other institutions that documents be produced. It's not a judicial process because it's not conducted in the courts, but it's conducted in our parliament, in our Congress. And there's an oversight committee. And then that committee investigates it. And then after their time period of investigation has expired, they come out with a report. And they say, we found this, we found that, we found this, we're still not satisfied, or we think there might have been criminal activity, so we're going to refer this to the public prosecutor. Or they may say, hey, we didn't find anything here. There's no smoking gun. It all looks legitimate. Oh, his wife, she's independently wealthy. This is her family's money, and she shares her wealth with her husband. Something like that. But these congressional committees operate independently. And the executive branch, but it has to be someone who is required to respond to Congress, such as someone in the executive branch, because Congress has oversight of the executive branch. They can't just investigate me. I'm not in the executive branch. But if I were vice president or head of a department or number 2 in a department, they could investigate me because they have oversight of the executive branch. That's how it would work. I've got to go. So I appreciate the time online with you guys. It's been a pleasure. And I wish you all happy holidays, happy new year, and we'll see you again, hopefully in the future.
All right. We'll see you soon. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Bye-bye.